Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brief introduction video. This video is just going to cover a few quick topics before we get into the actual CrowdWise Academy course. It's going to help you get the most from CrowdWise Academy. Again, this is Brian Belay from CrowdWise, so let's get started. We're going to be talking about today is the course overview, so we'll talk about what the different content is that you will be expecting to see. We'll talk about CrowdWise Academy format, how it's broken down between the 3 different level courses for different level investors, and then the modules within each of those. I'm going to introduce something called the Wiser Framework for Investing. This is something that I do that is a step-by-step process that I use whenever I look at investing in a new opportunity. I'm going to share some brief lessons that have been helpful to me that I've taken from various studies to help you optimize your learning and help you be able to get the most from these courses. And then we'll let you get started. So CrowdWise Academy, as we've mentioned in the past, we're providing 3 different courses. Level 1 is for novice investors, and the 2 modules within Level 1 are going to be Equity Crowdfunding 101, which will be a high-level overview, and then Module 2 will talk about investing fundamentals. This is going to cover concepts such as diversification, asset allocation, risk versus reward, and other concepts to help set a solid foundation before getting into the more advanced topics. Level 2, Intermediate, is also broken down into 2 modules. Level 2 focuses on early stage investing, so the first module is going to talk about risks and returns. Essentially, we'll be looking at historical risks and returns from the early stage investing asset class, what to expect for equity crowdfunding, and those types of topics. Module 2 is going to talk about the businesses as well as the offerings and deals. So we'll get more into the deal structure, what you can expect as you're looking at businesses on the crowdfunding portals, and then the different types of businesses that you will see raising, since they are not all the same. Lastly, Level 3 is our advanced course. It's broken into 3 modules, so Module 1 will talk about how to screen and select Reg CF deals. Module 2 will talk about other miscellaneous topics that are important, but perhaps not specifically related to the screening and selection of individual deals. So talk about taxes, token offerings, and more that you'll see. Lastly, Module 3 is all about making your first Reg CF investment. So we'll go over various case studies, look at some pitch decks, and then help you get started. CrowdWise Academy format, as we mentioned, so we have these 3 different levels, level 1, 2, and 3, and then within each level, it's broken down into modules. Now each module, just so you know, is going to have various lessons. So each lesson will have a video, and then most of them will have an associated mini project. This is just a very brief exercise to help make sure that you're applying what you learned in that lesson. Then each module is also going to have a capstone project. So this will be a little more substantial, but will be a milestone in helping to make sure that you can take everything that you learned from that module and put it to good use. And all of those capstone projects will build towards helping make your first investment. So it's little wins along the way to help start getting you closer to making that first investment. Also, as discussed, each module is going to have a quiz, so make sure you take that quiz before and after so you can see how much you've learned and help with the retention of the material. All 3 levels of investing courses are completely free, as we mentioned. All you need to do is get your free account, head over to academy.crowdwise.org. That's going to help you to track your progress and also access all the other content, which won't be available if you just watch the videos from YouTube. Now, one thing that I do before I make any new investment is I walk through a step-by-step process that helps me to set myself up for success from the beginning. I wanted to share that process with you today. I've called it the Wiser Investing Framework, where each letter of the Wiser acronym stands for one step of the process. The first is the investor why. These are your objectives, reasons for investing in equity crowdfunding. Are you just looking for capital appreciation, or perhaps looking to give back to the community? Your reason for investing is going to determine your potential success or failure and the types of investments that you make. So it's very important to start with the why. The next step in the framework is investment allocation. This is where you look at your overall portfolio and come up with allocations. So that's the amount of capital. Do you plan on investing 5%, perhaps 10%, or something else, as well as the number and size of investments. Next, the third step is strategy. Strategy is talking about your investment thesis, the criteria that you're going to be looking for, as well as your targets for rates of return and your timeline. Step 4 is where the rubber meets the road, and that's the execution phase. This is when you're screening for deals, looking for deal alignment, performing due diligence, and then making the decision of whether or not to invest. do take note that 3 of the first 4 steps of the process are actually about planning. I believe that it's crucial that you spend a lot of time setting up your plan from the beginning, as that will lead to better chances of success when you get to making your investments. Step 5, last but not least, is refine. What we mean by this is refining your investment process. So reviewing your investments, updating your screening process based on lessons that you've learned, and then adjusting as necessary. If there's one thing you can be sure of in the financial world, it's that what worked well in the past will not necessarily work as well in the future. So it's going to be important to refine your process as you go. Also, you're going to be learning a lot as you go from both failures and successes, so it's important to incorporate those learnings into your process and make your future investments have a higher probability of success. For the Wiser framework, each of the different level courses that we discussed will be touching on different points within that framework. So the level 1 introductory courses will be talking more about the why and the investment allocation. Level 2 will be getting much more heavily into the strategy for early stage investing, while level 3 will talk about the execution and refinement phases. Over the past 1 to 2 years, I've taken several courses and read several books that have talked about how humans learn. I wanted to share a few lessons that I've taken from those courses and books that hopefully you can apply. Look at them as little tricks that you can use to boost your learning and retention as you go through these courses. The first is called spaced repetition. Essentially, spaced repetition means pacing yourself, whether that's taking small breaks throughout the day, or also making sure you're not just plowing through every single course and module in a single night. Studies have shown that if you space things out in terms of your learning, even spending the same amount of time, you'll retain it better in the long run. Thus, we recommend that you space out the lessons in the modules and don't just necessarily go through all of them in one sitting. Next is active recall. What we mean by this is don't just passively watch the videos. Make sure you're taking the quizzes, doing the projects, and engaging with the comments. Next is pre-test. Since each module that we have will have a quiz, we recommend taking the module before watching the module courses. A study was done where 2 groups of students were going to take a test. One group took a pre-test before and then had the content that they learned and took the final exam, while the second group did not take any pre-test. What they found out is that those who took the pre-test did much better on the final exam. That means they were more tuned to learning the material due to the pre-test that they took. Next, share with others, making sure you're asking questions, sharing opinions, and participating. If you take the material that you've learned and try explaining some of the concepts with other people, this is going to help you to further solidify your learning. Tuned perception is where your subconscious will help you to learn when you set goals. So, the best example of this is if you bought a new car. Let's say you went and bought a certain model and make of a car, or perhaps you bought a new pair of shoes that were a certain color and brand. I bet that if any of you have bought a new car recently or bought that new pair of shoes, as soon as you went back out into the world, you noticed a lot more of that exact car on the road and a lot more people wearing those exact shoes. This is again because the brain has to filter a lot in your everyday life, and so tuned perception is where your subconscious is taking notice of different things that are relevant and then allowing them to pass through and help you out. What we mean by this is don't be surprised as you're going through this if you're noticing things in the daily life that you can apply back to your investing. In Carol Dweck's book, she talks about growth versus fixed mindsets. This is essentially where she says no one is born with most skills and knowledge. You learn them throughout your life. And how do you learn? You have to fail along the way. Thus, with focus and the right attitude, you can and will improve and gain confidence. We just don't want you to get discouraged by failure, so make sure you're learning from your failure and then applying those lessons to get better. Lastly, reward yourself. As you make progress, give yourself little rewards. This will help you retain more information and will keep you motivated throughout your learning. All right, let's get started. If you haven't already, head on over to academy.crowdwise.org and create your account. Again, it's a completely free sign up. It's going to give you the best learning experience as you'll get access to the quizzes and the other supplemental material. Second, pretest. As we mentioned, studies have shown that taking pretest can boost your learning and retention. Thus, we recommend taking the knowledge check quizzes for each module prior to watching each of those courses. You can take the quiz again at the end as well to show what you've learned or what you need to go back and revisit. Lastly, feedback. Please post comments with questions that others may need help with, and we will do our best to answer those questions. If you have technical or other feedback, or just want to say hi and let us know what you think, email brian@crowdwise.org. If you find these courses valuable, please help spread the word and help more investors by sharing this on social media and other channels. Again, if you have any comments or feedback, please let us know what you think, and we'll continue to make these courses better for future generations. That's all for today. Head on over, create your account, and get started at level 1.